So this looks like a good guy gone bad type of situation. And I don't know about you, but I don't ever feel like Chrom has ever had a darker side. It's always been pretty optimistic. Nonetheless, I really do like Chrom, and this outfit does look good. So let's do it.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is going to discuss and opinionate upon Chrom, which is our upcoming nearest Resplendent unit. Now you can treat this video as a Chrom unit analysis because at the end of the day, Resplendent stats help, but they do not define whether a character will succeed or not in most matchups. They definitely help, but if you like Chrom, you probably already built Chrom, or at least this video might help you in deciding to invest into Chrom. By the way, if you've watched some of my previous videos from years ago, you know I am a Chrom fan, and I've been a Chrom fan since literally Awakening. Like, he is my favorite character from Awakening. However, this video will be very similar to the Marth video that I covered about 2 months ago, so that'll be above me in a link below. Maybe you should watch that if you want to. Like to TLDW the whole video, if you don't already have like a Marth at like +9 or +10, you were like a year 1 player, then Chrom is a very solid alternative investment because he doesn't cost you grails, and that is what this video will touch upon. So with the builds also in question, let's jump into it, shall we? First of all, I'm going to actually look into I'm going to give you my thoughts on the art because is a Resplendent at the end of the day, so a little bit of changes. As I mentioned in the intro, I don't actually get the appeal of the Moose Spell attire for him. That doesn't thematically fit Chrom, since Chrom is more of an optimist in his game, and he doesn't really have a dark side, like, at all, for that matter. Like for Robin and the Hell theme, that makes sense, or like Niles in the Moose Spell theme. You know, like they have like dark sides. With Chrom, I'm not digging the theme of it, but the outfit itself does look really good. The colors really complement it. And I don't really like give much of an opinion on art because I don't feel like I know that much better. Like I'm not an artist, but thematically it doesn't make sense to me. If I miss something though, let me know in the comments. Like I actually, you know, maybe I just don't remember it clearly enough. It does look like a really good skin though. Like that looks great. Right now I would easily choose Niles and probably even Chrom when it comes to Resplendent outfits, if you know we ever got like a free Resplendent or something. I am F2P, so I don't have these, but I still, you know, I like them. So really cool outfits, really nice design. I love the art on this, and it would be really tough for me to like pick out between, you know, Chrom and Niles. I'd still probably pick Niles over Chrom, but these two are now for sure my favorite outfits when it comes down to it. So yeah, let's jump into what it looks like. So this is Chrom with Resplendent stats. Now you might automatically look at that and be like, wow, his speed and res are bad. But one thing to keep in mind is that speed is a super boon for him, which brings him up to 39, 31. And that is not that much of a difference between him and Marth, which would be the other F2P alternative. The res stats are exactly the same, so realistically, it's not that bad. If you also don't remember what Sealed Falchion did as an effect, that will be in right below me, which will just hover there during the video. Basically, Sealed Falchion has a condition where, and then they share it with Chrom and Marth. As long as they have a bonus, and the bonus doesn't have to be just a visible buff, by the way. It can be stuff like Ground Orders, it can be stuff like Divine Fang, so it's actually a pretty easy base effect to use. And the additional effect is checking if your opponent has over 75% health, which is again fairly good, and denying follow-ups, which is again a great effect playing into enemies who have auto follow-ups like Cyros or Duma, who you may not one-shot. However, we'll see that really isn't a problem for either Chrom or Marth. If you've seen the video, they do that job pretty well because of dragon effectiveness also in this weapon. Sealed Falchion is a really good weapon. at the end of the day. As I mentioned, like 39-31 if you were to use a speed super boon on Chrom, or 42 attack and 27 speed is actually really good of a stat spread with Resplendent, and both of them can use up to 15 flowers, which even further helps their case into being good units. I am not going to recommend one over the other, and even through the builds and the simulations that I covered throughout this video, I would just say pick whoever you like more, because they have a little bit of a difference. But at the end of the day, Chrom is just more of a powerhouse, and Marth is more of a speedy house, I guess. But yeah, let's jump into Chrom builds. We did cover Marth in the previous one, so I'm not going to cover on that one much. First build, similar to what I covered in the Marth build, is the one-shot Wrath Glimmer build. This build does want to be supported by Lancina to get the Glimmer procs off, which is kind of a defining factor with anyone who doesn't have a slaying weapon. It's hard to get consistency out of specials, and the specials do matter a lot in securing those kills, especially something like Glimmer off of somebody who has a 67 attack stat. And that's before even considering that Sealed Falchion adds an additional 10 attack to that, and that this doesn't have mythic blessings. Bumping Chrom up to effectively higher than like 80 attack, over 80 attack with buffs and blessings, which is nuts, and Glimmer scales really well off of that. So it's quite a good build, more budget-ish in terms of using Wrath over something like let's say Spurn. And by the way, he can use Spurn pretty well. Consider that most of the threats you might run into in Astra may not be that speedy. Lif is the speed blessing beneficiary on defense, so you don't see Lif that often. And you might be using Plumeria, who gives speed as an alternative. So it's actually not so bad for Chrom to run a speed super boon, because he will outspeed more of the common threats. And again, he will get his value out of that Spurn in most cases, but not all cases. And again, I will cover that in the simulations later. I think he's a decent candidate, and he kind of tries to balance his attack and speed and just have enough speed to get the benefit of Spurn, but not as much of a benefit as Marth, who definitely will win those speed checks, I feel, most of the time. Finally, if you don't have, let's say, Lancina to support him to get those special procs off, you might want to consider something like a special Spiral build, which could either use Glimmer or Bonfire. I'm not a huge fan of this, because you could run into guard effects, and guard effects do hurt this type of build quite a bit. But again, it's an option and something to consider if you don't have, let's say, Spurn, or you don't want to fodder Wrath, and you don't have Lancina. It's kind of difficult. She's a really good support, and I've covered her previously in my must-have 5 stars, because at the end of the day, Lancina's breath effect is really strong. Finally, we have a arena build, and this is literally the same as Marth, because again, using Time's Pulse, Gale Force, Flashing Blade, you're going to outspeed most things in Fire Season. You deny follow-ups, and some of the units in Fire Season, and by denying follow-ups in Sealed Falchion, you'd have some pretty favorable matchups against those that have auto follow-ups, maybe armors or whatnot, using like Bold Fighter or weapons that have auto double. So this is pretty good to go in and out, with Close Call being the factor here and giving you that mobility, with Time's Pulse bringing Gale Force effectively to a 4 charge. Okay, and finally, let's talk about the simulations. So what I did is I took the simulations from the builds showcased here, with the Wrath build from Chrom, the Spurn build from Marth again, and I'm going to compare it here, of course, and a Chrom build with Spurn, which was featured as well. So I'm taking the common threats from Anima, which would be Siros, Duma, Thrasier, and Lif. I'm not going to cover much more than that, but it's favorable. It's basically the same thing as that in the Marth video, so you can go take a look if you want to give yourself the contrast. With Chrom actually being a bit bulkier than Marth, as long as he doesn't run into speedy foes. One other thing I wanted to mention is that Chrom with Resplendent reaches 79 health, which gives him more resilience to Panic Manners at 3 Mythic Blessings, by the way. If you were to run a 4th Mythic Blessing, he actually can exceed over 80 HP, which is phenomenal for a tank. So yeah, as I said, matching into Duma, Siros, Thrasier, and Lift, just to give you guys started, and it ends up being really well. He's going to get one-shots on everything as long as you get that Glimmer proc off, including a Dragon Wall Siros who reduces the damage by 40%. He does take pretty hard hits, and you'll notice here that he does get hit quite hard by Thrasier, and again, that's where that speed does matter. Now, if you take that comparison to Mass Marth, who is actually quite a lot faster, you'll notice that the matchup versus Thrasier is a lot better because their speed is comparable and competitive to Thrasier, therefore reducing the damage that you take from Thrasier. Mass Marth still ends up getting those kills, but keep in mind that the bulkier the opponent, and the Sims here cover +1 variants of stuff like Duma and Siros, especially Siros. Adding merges to Siros, bringing her up to +10, actually favors Chrom over Mass Marth, and that's where things get a little bit more uncomfortable. So don't take this and think, oh my god, Mass Marth is objectively better. That's not the case. As I said in the beginning, choose who you like because they actually are very similar. And the biggest difference being against the speedy foes. But the bulkier foes, Chrom actually ends up securing the kills better, especially if they deny follow-ups through the use of something like Aurora Breath. As I mentioned, here is the Spurn Chrom build, which does end up doing a bit better against stuff like Siros, Duma, and Lift. Keep in mind, Chrom also has more bulk than Mass Marth, so he would be able to take more hits than Mass Marth, but again, he does struggle against the speedier foes as expected, such as Thrasier. Now, also, you could end up buffing Chrom's speed quite a bit more using stuff like Plumeria, which is not covered in the Sims, Drive Speed, which I did not add to the simulations, and just in general, more speed support or speed debuffs on the opponents, and that will make Chrom a little bit more consistent. In contrast, of course, Mass Marth could get more attack buffs, so drive attacks, joint drive attacks, and minus defense for the enemy, just to kind of close that gap. At the end of the day, to summarize all this, Mass Marth and Chrom are very similar, with Mass Marth being the choice against speedier foes on defense, for example, and Chrom really opting to secure as many kills as possible. One thing that definitely separates them is that speed meta. Thankfully, you don't see speed damage reduction on defense foes as often as us players who would be using them into offense. With that being said, folks, I hope you enjoyed the video. I am definitely a Chrom fan, but I'm not going to tell you that he is better than Mass Marth. He's just similar, and Resplendent stats actually bring him up to par at the end of the day. He's still fairly usable, but I would consider him a little bit worse than Mass Marth. But Mass Marth does cost grails if you're not basically a day one player. So yeah, choose who you like. Decent, solid unit, good investment. I like him. Alright guys, let me know what you think of Chrom in the comments below. I'm a Chrom fan. Easy for me. If you like the content, you want to keep supporting it, and you want to keep seeing it coming, consider the Patreon in the description below. That really helps me going. I think I'm going to put together a credits list, and really thank you guys for that support. It does mean a lot. And yeah, give the video a thumbs up, turn it blue. I will see you in the next one. Much love. Peace.
It's over.